So, real quick, go over to the Kickstarter, buy the files for this. All right, I'm done being a shill. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Layer by Layer. No, like for reals, though. We got the Splash Blaster out there, which is kind of a cool 3D printed thing. It is up on Kickstarter right now. We're testing out Kickstarter. What we want to do is a lot more kind of design-related content, and when those designs are done, we want to stick them up and make them available for you guys to purchase so that they're really good quality models around like functional parts that also show and demonstrate how to do a good 3D printed design. And the Splash Blaster is one of those. Admittedly, it's a large 300 milliliter syringe, but it's pretty fun in the pool. And if you've got a printer at home, it's a nifty thing to make and get a hold of there. So links down below. But no, like for real, I'm done shilling to that now. Yeah. Okay, first topic of the day. PLA Plus. Oh. So, PLA Plus, most of the time, is a sham. So, here's why. PLA Plus was originally created in about, I want to say 2019, early 2020. Or no, actually, it was 2018, 2019. PLA Plus was originally made as a material called NGO 845 and NGO 865. Yes, both of those numbers are correct, I do believe. But NGO was the original creator of PLA, and then there have been a number of various variations because you can make plastic out of soybeans anywhere. So other companies also created it. I think the other one is Lumen. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the other company right now. I should, because we're buying a bunch of material for them for our filament. But I can't remember who it is. But anyway, NGO originally created original PLA, which had yellowing and is the stuff that breaks a lot of the time. When you mess with it, it's really brittle. 850 was created to be more durable. 850 and 870, those are the correct numbers. But 850 and 870 were both PLA Plus and PLA Pro or whatever they wanted to call it. But they were more durable. They could be annealed through a little bit of baking and that kind of stuff. And that was the basis for PLA Plus for a lot of filament brands. Here's the thing, though. It's been several years since then. PLA Plus does not mean anything today. PLA Plus is not a material specification. It does not mean jack diddly. I have had people tell me that, PLA Plus has ABS mixed in with it. PLA Plus is this, PLA is better, it's got TPU, PLA Plus, whatever it is. All of that might be true. Most of it is not. PLA Plus right now is a brand identity, and we have literally seen PLA Plus that has a yellow tint to it for transparent native color, and that means it's NGO 4043 low-grade PLA, and it's just cheap. And even like PLA Plus has been marketed as the low-cost material in some places. It's not. So PLA Plus anymore is basically just a brand name for good quality, which is like saying good quality on a product listing. It means nothing if your stuff isn't actually good quality. PLA Plus used to be a type of material that was a more durable version of PLA. Anymore, a listing or a product saying PLA Plus does not mean anything if they don't give you the actual material number or material technical data sheet. So public service announcement on that has razzed me up and been kind of an irritating point of clarification that I've had to do for folks. PLA Plus doesn't mean anything. If you say PLA Plus in like a request for quote, it's like, okay, it's PLA, or what is the function of your device, and we'll pick a material for you. Because PLA Plus is not a technical description. So anyhow, that's out there now. There may be variations that people have branded as PLA Plus, and the 3D printing industry is really bad at branding. So it might be true that they've actually have created a good material that's a mix or a hybrid of some sort. It's very likely not PLA and ABS. Those two don't play nice together in a mixture. But anyhow, PLA Plus is not a real thing. It's not something to give value to in the context of picking your material. Pro PLA is what NGO originally called it. That the brand names are coming back now as I keep on running through this. But Pro PLA and like durable or tough PLA were kind of the generic names that a lot of filament manufacturers used to define it. Since then, again, there's a lot of copies of that material out there too. So there's no way to really know what your material is, but PLA Plus is not a material spec. Please don't request it if you need mass production. It doesn't help us. Okay, software. Oh, yeah, we recently launched the Print on Demand app, which is a demonstration of our API. It's a testing of our API, not necessarily a demonstration. But basically to get the thing out into the world. We've been working on the API for a while now, and it will allow people to plug into our farm. It's not ready yet. It's not going to be released yet. We'll let you know when it's released. But it's testing. It's live. This is the beta for it. But this print on demand app is, quite frankly, not really intended for a lot of the core people who likely watch this channel, who have a 3D printer at home. It can be useful because you can order up to like 100 parts on it, so that if you're needing quick, easy access, you can get standard colors uploaded very quickly and printed reliably. You get access to our large-scale print farms. But also, this app is really intended for people who are not close to 3D printing. So we hope that it's useful for like prosthetists who orthotics and prosthetic people who are doing like test fittings because they will print like sockets to make sure that the socket design is reliable and comfortable on the patient. So getting those printed and shipped very quickly is what this app would be useful for, as well as things like teachers in universities or other educational institutions that need quick and easy access to printed parts that are affordable and that are reliable and scalable for an entire class or a camp or whatever it might be, where there might not be the expertise to really crank out a bunch of parts and just need a little bit of breather room. So that's really what this app is for, is to give access to people who are not familiar with printing in order to explore maybe the design of a product. And it's also useful for prototyping, to get the shape of a thing. If you don't have a 3D printer within your business or organization, or somebody with the expertise to operate it well, you can use this app to get a quick, easy print. And it allows folks to very seamlessly and quickly get access to those and then reorder over time. We have a few folks that we expect to be using this to print out items for like their shops, because they're literally just uploading a few dozen models and then just hitting reorder, and changing the shipping address. So basically using it as drop shipping, which is cool. And we want to do that. We will have other applications out to help with that in the future, but that's really kind of the start. Anyway, but that software is out. We have another piece of software, a couple pieces of new software that should be closer to home for a lot of the audience here, and we will have announcements about those coming soon. But the software is really cranking along, and the team has been doing a fantastic job on that. It's some cool stuff, and it's going to get a lot cooler pretty darn quickly. Okay, that's that. 3D Systems Stratasys Nano Dimension. I'm tired of this story. You guys tired of this story? This is on my note sheet every week, and I don't think I've talked about it in several weeks. There'd be drama. Whatever. It's like Nano Dimension wants to buy Stratasys, but 3D Systems does too, and Desktop Metal's trying to merge, and everybody's mad and not mad, but buddies, and so on and so forth. Who cares? These are, I don't mean to be dissuading of this, but they are small companies. This is not Tesla and Apple merging. This is not something that big. It's not even Twitter size things. This is $1 billion to $2 billion companies deciding who's going to partner up to expand their existing systems. And I did talk about this last week, that it's just the overall merging of the industry and consolidation of it, because these guys are battening down the hatches because there's everybody and their grandma making a 3D printer out there. So is what it is, and who cares? We'll see who decided what and what the plan is, and somebody can write a book about it one of these days that won't sell anything except the 2 self-published copies to their mother. But yeah, I don't care about the 3D Systems story. Filament. Yeah, filament's coming. Don't have a big update on that right now. Yeah, we're working on it. It's coming. Don't have a good update on it right now. We'll have a good update here soon. New items. Okay. In the context of videos and like the content of the channel going forward, a lot of you guys have been requesting a lot more design content of how to design for mass production printing or how to design good 3D printed parts. And it's been videos like these. This was the parametric mug handle, which, by the way, for all the lefties out there, if you want to, mirror it straight across. And since you're using 3D printing, you can print products on demand at scale. So that it doesn't matter if something is left-handed and right-handed, because the person who ordered it gets it to match them. Anyway, that's what you're doing if you're doing high-level product design with printing. But these design videos have been really well responded to, and I really want to thank you guys all for watching those and sharing them around and that kind of stuff. They're also really fun to do. Quite frankly, these like design explorations of things like handles and other basic hardware are a lot of fun to do, and to demonstrate like what is possible by messing around with different styles and designs and that kind of thing. I hope the video's gone out already for this one, but it should have. It's scheduled to go ahead of this. But yeah, these are really nifty options that I think are really educational and a lot of fun to mess with. So there'll be more of those coming out. We're trying to, rather than have them kind of abstract like this of like, here's a handle for a thing, we'd like to do them more centralized on particular products, like the Splash Blaster and that kind of stuff, like an actual real thing that if you guys want to print yourself, you can go ahead and print it yourself. So we're going to do more videos around particular items, and even more specific than like the hammer and that kind of stuff, which we should get the file of this out there somewhere. So we need to put that on the to-do list of just people being able to mess with this. But we want them to be functional and close to where they are parts that you guys can use and get access to. In doing that, designing very intentionally rather than abstractly requires a lot more planning and effort. So we are going to make the files available for purchase, generally through a Kickstarter, so that they're really easy to get a hold of. And that way anybody who wants the files can get the files, anybody who wants the prints can get the prints. Because again, they're going to be functional things. Some of the things that we've discussed are like how to do golf tees well, literally the tees at the beginning, the wooden tees if you're not a golfer. But that's a really simple one because it's interesting for us to demonstrate how to make it scalable. So it's like, this is how you would design it if you want to make 1 million of these for a penny a piece or something like that. But then we also want to say, okay, you're using printing, why don't we use printing? So we got some nifty ideas around like embedded magnets and all kinds of nifty geometry that can't really be manufactured any other way. So we want to do that. And then make the files available. So if anybody wants to print them, you can get a hold of them, and it's summer, so have fun. But we've got golf tees. We've looked at like handles, more general use kind of handles. And I'm not going to reveal too much about that because that sounds like nothing, but it's actually going to be kind of fun. And then a few other products and things that are like more topical and of the moment, to really demonstrate again, what is possible when you use printing as the product manufacturing end goal rather than a prototyping thing, which is the fundamental mission of what we do here is how does 3D printing take over the world? Because there's no reason that it shouldn't. 3D printing has fewer inputs and fewer costs than traditional manufacturing because you don't have molds or shipping or warehousing or all this other stuff. The fundamental idea of printing is that you put in electricity and raw material, plastic, and you get a final part out, and there's no other inputs. If the part is designed right and the process is working well, that should be enough, and you can have a finished product. That's why our like fundamental operating goal has been to build the warehouse where the shelves make the product. This manufacturing back end that cranks out whatever you need when you need it. So anyhow, that we want to demonstrate that more in more relatable terms than these abstract design concepts. The individual designs of like, this is how you do a feature here and this is how you do a feature here will continue to exist because they are useful to really focus in on that particular design characteristic. But we want to make it more general and kind of talk about like the business model and the markets a little bit more. Like in the context of the Splash Blaster, and I know I was going to be done with this, but like talking about how to do a Kickstarter and why this one failed for silly reasons and why products kind of fail in general is useful to the industry and anybody else who is interested in making products and using 3D printing for it. So we want to talk about those more. And we'll continue to talk about those designs. Okay. Will those files be open sourced? No. Not truly. Here's the thing. I'm going to get in trouble. Open source has never truly existed or ever truly been effective. The only time open source projects have been viable have been within software where the open source tool gained so much acceptance that an organization took over basically the maintenance of it. This would kind of be like Red Hat or even like Microsoft working with different things. Linux is the one outlier, sort of, but mainly because Linus does such a good job. Linus Torvalds does such a good job of kind of keeping his thumb on it. It is a formal organization where he controls the main kernel code. And he does it very directly. But open source does not work for physical design because, quite frankly, I think at this point, there's probably fewer people who can contribute to it than even people who contribute to code. I think there's likely more developers than good mechanical engineers. Also, the iteration and the development of like 3D model design is not as easy as code because just tracking revisions and interdependencies and that kind of stuff is not as easy as code. Git has not been transferred to 3D models as well. They have been, and people do it, and it works, but it's not really good and seamless or as easy as code. So there's that. You don't get the benefit inside of 3D modeling of open source. Open source has also created a lot of toxicity inside of the 3D printing community of this idea that you gave the file away, and because there's this sheet of paper that is unenforceable unless you want to go enforce it, which is worse than a patent, it doesn't do anything. And the idea that, okay, 10,000 people just downloaded the file on the honor system, that's a problem because it's just the numbers don't work well that will turn out well all the time. So we will distribute the files, and the files are not going to have like a timer on them where they blow up or anything else. We're just going to be like, yeah, we're going to sell you the files and you can purchase the files. And then we will try to police them on Thingiverse a bit, but there's no way to stop sharing of files. And you also cannot expect people to not do that. It's never happened with music. It's never happened with movies. I mean, there's pirated versions of everything out there. So you just have to get used to it and assume that the vast majority of people are really good folks who are going to take care of the stuff and not copy it around. 3D models are going to benefit from the whole NFT thing in a lot of different ways as far as tracking. But our expectation is that, okay, we sold the file, somebody got the file is gone now. So it's kind of an upfront get what we get from the design and the education from the videos and the long-term content around it. But when we share a file, we expect that file to basically be on the wind. So we're not going to be like, oh, it's an open source, whatever version of the license. It's just like, no, we expect this to go out into the world, and it's our contribution to the world. And we appreciate everybody who supports us by purchasing those files up front, but we don't expect to hold on to them. Because number one, the design of the files is like holding on to an idea. It's really not very useful if you're the only one who has it. It's got to be shared around. And while we understand that we're not going to get the benefit of open source, crowdsourcing, that kind of thing, we think that's still worth it. But we will be selling the files initially. And yes, if they get lost or posted somewhere, well, we'll try to police those, but it's the internet. There's no way to catch them all. But yeah, open source is a flawed methodology that only works in very specific situations with kind of tight controls and good incentives set up. I think I've talked about this before with like the case of Linux. Linux doesn't look at open source the way like the 3D printing industry looks at open source. People in the 3D printing industry look at open source and it's like, I'm giving this away. But that is not how Linux views it. They're like, we are all contributing to something that we all want. So it's not, oh, you're making something and I get to partake of it. There's some of that, but every major organization that takes major advantage of it leans on that tool and therefore is invested in making sure that tool remains good, like in the case of Linux, which runs the internet. But if your coffee cup design is not mission critical for a company to exist, they're not going to help upkeep the design. And quite frankly, once it's done, it's done. It's not like software where it will continually iterate and go defunct over time. Physical goods don't have that. So open source worked sort of for software, but I don't think it'll ever really work for hardware in its current format. There's some software things that can help improve that around like Git and that kind of stuff. But until everybody moves to 3D printing as like the supply chain, who cares if a design is updated? And where is the protectionism inside of the design? It has none of the flexibility or the agileness of software until products are made on demand with 3D printing and basically become software. But that's a whole different issue and conversation. That's probably not worth it for this. But yeah, open source is not something that we're interested in the context of what we do and how we do it, because it provides very little value or advantage or investment in the time of our team and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into making one of these things. So, and very often open source is second rate. There are very few open source products that I would say are like premium or leading. Again, I go back to Linux, but they're the gold standard of having made that model work. And I don't know how you do that for physical goods, because open source, again, the 3D printing industry has suffered from this. Designers for years have done it as fun and a hobby. And when people do it for fun and a hobby, it's very often lower grade than if it was professional. Now that a lot of designers are starting to be paid for their models through things like Patreon or what Printables and things are doing, it's now possible for them to make a living and therefore invest in improving and growing their craft to create really good, high quality products, which wasn't possible before, because in the open source world, everything was free. And that's fine until somebody actually has to make a living doing the thing. So I'm very excited about the way the world is going, because now designers can actually get what they want and need, and can make a living doing it so that they can improve and raise the overall quality of design and style and techniques that has never been possible before. So anyhow, yes, I think open source has kind of hurt that inside of the 3D printing community. The only folks who have benefited from open source are, this is the part where I'm going to get in trouble. There's been a lot of discussion about open source recently, and everyone whining about it benefited enormously from it. So it's kind of like pot calling the kettle black. So, and even the industry as a whole has benefited from the end of the patent of like FDM or SLA or SLS becoming open source, which hurt those other companies and other organizations. But then, yes, these open source organizations benefited from it. And now, admittedly, those organizations contributed back to the open source repository. But now they're mad that other people are now benefiting from the open source creations. I get it. I totally get it. Whatever position you're in, you defend it. But intellectually inconsistent. Anyway, so that's all that. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've been enjoying the videos. Do comment down below if there's other topics that you want us to cover. And I know I said I wasn't going to show this again, but go to the Kickstarter, get the files for this. This is actually pretty darn good. I'm quite proud of the design of how this turned out. All the parts print really easily, are a lot of fun, and my nieces and nephews really enjoy this. So I'm going to keep on plugging it, because even though it was a weekend project that was kind of a throwaway, we think we can still get it out there and be a fun file for y'all. So anyhow, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. We recently passed 125,000 subscribers, which was a big milestone. We thought we'd do that like by the end of the year, and we did it obviously much sooner. So thank you all so much for subscribing. Hopefully this continues to be useful content for you that's informative and shows you how to make good products at scale, and learn techniques that you may not have run into before. Have a great day, everybody.